The crystalline towers of Valeria Prime hummed with desperate energy as Counselor Veltara placed her translucent hand on the communication array. Her people had never known fear like this before. The Kithrak swarm had already consumed 17 worlds in their sector and showed no signs of stopping. Each planet they devoured left nothing behind but lifeless rock and the echo of screams that traveled through subspace. Veltara's species communicated through harmonic frequencies that could travel across star systems when amplified correctly. Today she would use that gift to send a message farther than any Valerian had ever attempted. The other council members stood behind her in a circle, their bodies glowing with soft blue light as they prepared to add their voices to hers. "Are we certain about this decision?" asked Counselor Mordain. His usual calm demeanor had cracked under the pressure of watching their civilization crumble. "We know nothing about what species might receive our call." Veltara looked at the holographic display showing their remaining worlds. Red markers indicated the planets already lost. Yellow showed those currently under attack. Only 3 green markers remained. 3 worlds out of what had once been a thriving empire of 47 planets. "We have exhausted all other options," she replied. "Our defense fleets cannot stop them. Our diplomatic envoys have failed to find sanctuary among our known neighbors. If we do nothing, we will be extinct within 6 rotations." The Valerians had evolved on a world of gentle breezes and singing crystals. Their technology focused on harmony and growth rather than destruction. Their ships were works of art made from living crystal that could repair itself and grow stronger over time. Their weapons were designed to disable rather than destroy. The concept of total war was so foreign to them that they had no words for genocide in their language. The Kithrak swarm changed everything. These creatures were not interested in conquest or resources. They consumed entire biospheres and left nothing behind. They stripped planets of all organic matter and moved on like a plague of locusts with starships. The Valerians had tried to communicate with them but received only hungry silence in return. "Begin the transmission," Veltara commanded. The other council members joined their voices to hers, and the great communication array began to glow. The message would carry their mathematical principles, star charts showing the location of the attacks, and a desperate plea for help from any advanced civilization that might be listening. The harmonic frequencies built into a crescendo that could be heard across dimensions. Every Valerian on the planet felt the call resonate in their bones. Children stopped playing and looked up at the sky. Adults paused in their work and added their own voices to the chorus. The entire population of Valeria Prime sang together, in a song of desperate hope. Across the galaxy, the signal traveled at speeds that defied conventional physics. It passed through systems where ancient races had long ago retreated into pocket dimensions to escape the chaos of the material universe. It whispered past civilizations that had heard too many desperate calls to answer them anymore. It echoed through the territories of predator species that viewed such signals as dinner bells announcing the location of new prey. On Earth, the message arrived during what humans called the night shift at Deep Space Monitoring Station Bravo. Dr. Somin Park was reviewing routine telemetry data when her instruments detected something impossible. The harmonic patterns were too complex and too organized to be natural phenomena. She ran the signal through every analysis program the station possessed. "This is definitely artificial," she said to her assistant while highlighting key portions of the waveform. "The mathematical sequences are elegant, and the harmonic structure suggests a highly advanced understanding of subspace physics." Dr. Park had spent 15 years studying potential alien communications. Most of what reached Earth turned out to be pulsars or quantum anomalies that created patterns resembling intelligence. This signal was different. The complexity increased over time, as if the senders were providing more and more detailed information to help any listeners understand their situation. She began the process of mathematical translation that had been developed by Earth's xenolinguistics department. The numbers came first, simple counting sequences that established basic concepts. Then came geometric principles and physical constants that any spacefaring species would recognize. Finally, the star charts began to resolve into recognizable patterns. "My God," Dr. Park whispered as she realized what she was looking at. The signal showed the locations of multiple star systems with detailed information about which planets were under attack and which had already fallen. This was not just a message, it was a tactical briefing about an ongoing war. She immediately contacted Admiral Wu Jin Lee at Pacific Fleet Command. The admiral had been awakened from sleep, but showed no irritation as Dr. Park explained her discovery. Earth's military had been preparing for first contact scenarios for decades. Every officer above the rank of lieutenant colonel had received training in xenological warfare principles. "How certain are you that this is genuine?" Admiral Lee asked while studying the translated star charts on his personal display. The mathematics were consistent, and the level of detail suggested a species with scientific knowledge comparable to or exceeding Earth's current capabilities. The signal source is approximately 200 light-years away in the direction of the Vela constellation, Dr. Park replied. The harmonic frequencies are too complex to be naturally occurring, and the mathematical content is clearly the work of an advanced civilization. Admiral Lee had seen enough evidence to convince him. Within 30 minutes, he had contacted the Colonial Council Emergency Committee. President Yeon-Soo Cho listened to the briefing with growing concern. Earth had always expected that first contact might involve some form of crisis, but they had imagined scenarios involving trade disputes or territorial conflicts rather than genocidal extermination. "What do we know about the attacking force?" President Cho asked. The translated portions of the signal provided disturbing details about an enemy that consumed entire worlds. The descriptions suggested a biological threat rather than a conventional military invasion. The attackers appear to be some form of swarm intelligence that strips planets of all organic matter, Admiral Lee explained. The aliens sending the distress call have lost 17 worlds in what appears to be a systematic extermination campaign. President Cho made the decision that would change everything. "Admiral Lee, you are authorized to assemble whatever forces are necessary to investigate this situation. If there is a species facing extinction, and we have the capability to help them, then we have a moral obligation to act." The admiral smiled grimly. Earth's military had been built to fight wars against other humans in the harsh environment of space. Their ships were designed to operate in radiation fields that would kill most organic life. Their weapons were created to penetrate armor and destroy targets completely rather than disable them. They had evolved warfare to an art form that prioritized efficiency and lethality above all other considerations. "I'll begin mobilizing the fleet immediately," Admiral Lee replied. "If this signal is accurate, then we're looking at a threat that could potentially spread to other sectors of the galaxy, including our own." As communication arrays across Earth began transmitting mobilization orders, the Valerians continued their desperate broadcast. Counselor Veltara felt her strength fading as she poured more energy into the signal. The other council members took turns maintaining the harmonic frequencies that carried their plea across the void. None of them knew that their call for help had reached a species that evolved on a world so hostile that survival required constant warfare against everything, from microscopic pathogens to massive predators. They had no concept of a civilization that had turned conflict into science and violence into art. They could not imagine warriors who considered their current technology to be primitive compared to what they were capable of creating when properly motivated. The signal continued to broadcast as Kithrak scout ships appeared at the edge of the Valerian system. Time was running out for the crystalline beings who had never learned to hate their enemies. Their call for help echoed across the galaxy, carrying with it the location of every remaining Valerian world and a complete tactical analysis of their defenses. What they did not know was that the response was already beginning to gather momentum. 200 light-years away, where a species of apex predators was preparing to venture into deep space for the first time in their history, Admiral Wu Jin Lee stood in the command center of Luna Base, watching as the largest military mobilization in human history began to take shape. The main display showed ship movements across the solar system as vessels from every fleet converged on the assembly point beyond Mars' orbit. Transport ships carried additional personnel and supplies, while construction yards worked around the clock to outfit every available vessel for deep space operations. The speed of the response surprised even veteran military officers who had spent their careers preparing for various emergency scenarios. Within 12 hours of receiving the alien distress signal, Earth's governments had unanimously approved Operation Distant Thunder. Every major nation contributed ships and personnel to what would become the largest expeditionary force ever assembled by humanity. Captain Dae-Ho Kim received his orders while the UES Indomitable was docked at Titan Station for routine maintenance. The massive dreadnought was one of the newest ships in Earth's fleet and had been designed specifically for long-range operations against unknown threats. Its hull was 3 meters of layered armor designed to withstand everything from nuclear explosions to particle beam weapons. All hands prepare for immediate departure, Captain Kim announced over the ship's communication system. We have received priority orders for deep space deployment. All shore leave is canceled, and all personnel must report to duty stations within 2 hours. The Indomitable's crew of 800 moved with practiced efficiency as they prepared their ship for war. Chief Petty Officer Dong Hyun Lim supervised the loading of additional ammunition while engineering teams conducted final checks on the ship's fusion reactors. The vessel carried enough firepower to level a medium-sized moon and enough supplies to operate independently for 6 months. Lieutenant Namil Choi reviewed the translated alien signal in his quarters while preparing for departure. The tactical information painted a grim picture of an enemy that had overwhelmed advanced civilizations with apparent ease. The attacking force showed characteristics of both a biological plague and a military invasion. Traditional defensive strategies appeared to be completely ineffective against them. The aliens described the enemy as consuming entire biospheres, Lieutenant Choi noted in his preliminary analysis. This suggests either extremely advanced matter conversion technology or some form of biological process that can break down complex, organic molecules rapidly. General Hyun-Woo Kang assembled the 3rd Marine Expeditionary Unit aboard the assault carrier Tsunami. His 20,000 Marines represented the elite of Earth's ground forces and were equipped with powered armor, designed for combat in hostile environments. Each Marine carried enough firepower to destroy a small building and had been trained to fight in conditions that would kill unprotected humans within minutes. Listen up, General Kang addressed his unit commanders during the final briefing. We don't know what we're going to find out there, but based on the intelligence we've received, these enemies have wiped out multiple civilizations. Our job is to be ready for anything from boarding actions to planetary assault operations. The SOS Marines began final preparations for departure, while weapons specialists loaded exotic munitions that had never been tested in actual combat. Nuclear-tipped penetrator rounds designed to destroy hardened bunkers. Plasma charges that could melt through meter-thick armor plating. Biological weapons that could sterilize entire facilities. Earth's military had prepared for every conceivable threat scenario. Colonel Yoon Ji-yoon commanded the Special Operations Group that would handle reconnaissance and intelligence gathering. Her teams were trained in zero-gravity combat and equipped with stealth technology that made them nearly invisible to most detection systems. They carried weapons designed for precision strikes against high-value targets and had authorization to use any means necessary to complete their missions. We're going into this blind, Colonel Yoon told her team leaders. We don't know what the enemy looks like, what their technology is capable of, or how they organize their forces. Our job is to get close enough to gather intelligence and survive long enough to report back. Dr. So-min Park boarded the exploration vessel Curiosity, along with a team of xenolinguistics specialists and cultural analysts. Her job would be to establish communication with any surviving aliens and gather information about the threat they were facing. The ship carried advanced translation equipment and first contact protocols that had been developed over decades of theoretical planning. Remember that we're dealing with a species that has never encountered humans before, Dr. Park briefed her team. Their cultural assumptions and communication methods may be completely different from anything we've experienced. We need to be prepared for misunderstandings that could have serious consequences. President Yeon-Soo Cho addressed the fleet via encrypted communication link as the final preparations were completed. 847 warships of various classes had been assembled for the mission. The force included everything from massive dreadnoughts capable of destroying entire space stations to fast corvettes designed for reconnaissance and rapid strikes. You carry with you the hopes and prayers of all humanity, President Cho said. We are venturing into the unknown to help a species we have never met face a threat we do not understand. Your actions in the coming days may determine not only the fate of an alien civilization, but also the future relationship between humanity and the galaxy beyond our solar system. Admiral Lee reviewed the final tactical assessments as the fleet prepared to depart. Human military doctrine emphasized overwhelming firepower and rapid decisive action. Their ships carried weapons designed to destroy targets completely rather than disable them. Their tactics focused on eliminating threats as quickly and efficiently as possible. The jump calculations were completed and verified by multiple navigation teams. The alien signal had provided detailed star charts that allowed human scientists to plot a course directly to the crisis zone. The journey would require 3 hyperspace jumps across a distance of 200 light-years. Each jump carried risks since they would be entering unexplored regions of space. "All ships report ready for departure," Admiral Lee announced. "Execute. Jump sequence on my mark." The massive fleet disappeared in a series of brilliant flashes as their hyperspace drives activated simultaneously. The gravitational distortions were detected by monitoring stations throughout the solar system. Earth had just committed the largest military force in its history to a mission beyond the boundaries of known space. Meanwhile, in the Valerian system, the crystalline towers continued broadcasting their desperate plea for help. Counselor Veltara felt her strength failing as she maintained the harmonic frequencies that carried their message across the galaxy. The other council members took turns supporting the transmission, but their energy reserves were nearly exhausted. Kithrak's scout ships had appeared at the edge of their system and were conducting what appeared to be reconnaissance sweeps. The enemy showed no interest in communication or negotiation. They simply catalogued the remaining Valerian worlds and transmitted the information back to their main force. The systematic approach suggested an intelligence that planned its attacks carefully. "The advanced scouts have completed their survey," reported military advisor Harvek. "Based on their movement patterns, the main swarm will arrive within 2 planetary rotations." Veltara nodded weakly, while continuing to focus her energy on the distress signal. They had received no response to their calls for help, and time was running out. The Valerian Defense Fleet consisted of 43 vessels designed for exploration and peaceful contact with other species. Their weapons were intended to disable attacking vessels rather than destroy them. Against an enemy that showed no mercy, such restraint would be meaningless. "Continue the transmission," Veltara ordered. "If there is any species in the galaxy capable of helping us, they must know what is happening here." The Valerians could not imagine that their call for help had reached a species that evolved under conditions so hostile that warfare was considered a basic survival skill. They had no concept of a civilization that had turned violence into science and developed weapons capable of sterilizing entire planets. They could not envision warriors who viewed the systematic extermination of an enemy as a reasonable solution to a tactical problem. The human fleet completed its first hyperspace jump and began the approach to the second navigation point. Long-range sensors detected no immediate threats, but the journey was far from over. Captain Kim studied the tactical displays while his crew prepared for whatever they might encounter at their destination. "All ships maintain formation and prepare for combat operations," Admiral Lee transmitted to the fleet. "We don't know what we're going to find when we reach the target system, but based on the intelligence we've received, we should expect immediate hostile contact." The second jump sequence activated, and the human armada continued its journey toward a crisis that would test everything they thought they knew about warfare in space. Behind them, Earth's remaining defenses prepared for the possibility that the threat they were going to investigate might eventually find its way to humanity's home system. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Valerian system, with all weapons powered and shields raised. Admiral Lee had learned from centuries of human warfare that arriving prepared for immediate combat was always preferable to being caught unprepared. 847 warships materialized in perfect formation with their sensor arrays actively scanning for threats. Captain Daeho Kim stood on the bridge of the Indomitable watching as the tactical displays filled with information about the alien system. 3 planets showed signs of active civilization, while several others appeared to be lifeless husks. Long-range sensors detected the distinctive energy signatures of the distress signal they had followed across 200 light-years of space. "Admiral, we're detecting massive gravitational anomalies throughout the system," reported Lieutenant Nam-il Choi from his sensor station. "The readings suggest the presence of extremely large organic masses moving between planets. On Valeria Prime, the arrival of the human fleet triggered every detection system the crystalline beings possessed. Their sensors were designed to identify approaching vessels for peaceful contact and trade negotiations. They had never been required to analyze the approach of a military armada bristling with weapons designed for total destruction." Counselor Veltara felt the harmonic frequencies of her people shift from desperate hope to absolute terror as the sensor reports reached the council chambers. The approaching fleet was larger than anything in Valerian history and appeared to be configured for warfare on a scale they could not comprehend. "The incoming vessels are armed with weapons we cannot identify," reported sensor technician Limara. "Their hull compositions suggest armor thickness that exceeds our most optimistic projections for defensive plating." Military advisor Harvek studied the tactical displays with growing dismay. Each human ship carried more firepower than the entire Valerian defense fleet combined. The formation they maintained suggested a level of military coordination that spoke of centuries of warfare experience. If these beings were another predator species, then the Valerians had simply summoned a more efficient form of extinction. "Are they responding to our communication attempts?" Veltara asked, while trying to maintain the harmonic frequencies of their distress call. The effort was draining her remaining strength, but she refused to stop broadcasting until they knew the intentions of the newcomers. Dr. Somin Park worked frantically aboard the exploration vessel Curiosity to establish communication with the aliens. The harmonic patterns of their language were unlike anything in Earth's xenolinguistic databases, but the mathematical principles underlying their transmission provided a foundation for translation efforts. "I'm detecting structured harmonic sequences that suggest a highly sophisticated communication system," Dr. Park reported to Admiral Lee. "The patterns show characteristics of both language and music combined in ways that human vocal cords could never replicate." Ensign Ari Song assisted with the translation efforts by analyzing the mathematical components of the alien signals. The numerical sequences provided universal constants that any spacefaring species would recognize. Gradually, the basic framework of the alien language began to emerge from the complex harmonic patterns. "Admiral, I believe I can establish basic communication," Dr. Park announced after 3 hours of intensive analysis. "The aliens use harmonic frequencies that carry both emotional context and factual information simultaneously. It's like they're singing their thoughts rather than speaking them." The first exchange between humans and Valerians was a study in mutual misunderstanding. Dr. Park transmitted basic mathematical concepts using simplified harmonic patterns, while the Valerians responded with increasingly desperate pleas for the human fleet to withdraw from their system. "They seem to think we're here to attack them," Dr. Park reported with confusion. "They're broadcasting surrender offers and begging us not to destroy their remaining worlds." Admiral Lee realized that the Valerians had interpreted the arrival of a heavily armed human fleet as the arrival of another hostile force. The misunderstanding was dangerous since it prevented proper communication about the actual threat they were facing. "Transmit our peaceful intentions," Admiral Lee ordered. "Make it clear that we received their distress signal and came here to provide assistance against the threat they described." The translation efforts gradually resolved the confusion as both species began to understand each other's perspective. The Valerians learned that the heavily armed vessels were actually a rescue fleet responding to their call for help. The humans discovered that they were dealing with a species so peaceful that the concept of a military rescue operation was foreign to their experience. Counselor Veltara felt overwhelming relief when she finally understood that the human fleet had come to help rather than to conquer. The harmonic frequencies of her people shifted from terror to cautious hope as the truth of the situation became clear. "They are warriors from a distant world who heard our call and came to fight the Kithrak swarm," she announced to the Valerian High Council. "Their ships are weapons of war because they understand the nature of the enemy we face." Captain Jinsu Bay commanded the stealth frigate Silent Arrow during reconnaissance operations throughout the system. His sensors detected the aftermath of Kithrak attacks on several planets, and the readings were disturbing. The enemy had indeed consumed entire biospheres, leaving nothing behind but sterile rock. "Admiral, the enemy appears to use some form of biological warfare combined with advanced matter conversion technology," Captain Bay reported. "The attacked planets show no traces of organic compounds and minimal mineral resources. Whatever hit these worlds was thorough beyond anything in our tactical databases." The cultural exchange that followed revealed the scope of the crisis facing the galaxy. The Valerians provided detailed records of 17 worlds that had been completely consumed by the Kithrak swarm. The pattern of attack suggested a form of intelligence that planned its campaigns carefully while showing no interest in communication or negotiation. "The Kithrak are not like other species," explained Counselor Veltara during the first direct communication session. "They do not seek territory or resources in ways we understand. They consume everything and leave nothing behind. They are like a plague that spreads from world to world. General Hyun-Woo Kang reviewed the tactical intelligence with growing concern. The enemy showed characteristics that combined the worst aspects of biological warfare with the systematic approach of an advanced military force. Traditional human tactics would need to be adapted for fighting an opponent that treated entire planets as consumable resources. The enemy doesn't appear to maintain traditional supply lines or forward bases, General Kang reported to Admiral Lee. They consume resources as they advance, which makes them extremely difficult to predict or intercept. Colonel Yoon Ji-yoon deployed her special operations teams to gather intelligence about Kithrak movement patterns. The stealth technology that made her teams invisible to human sensors also appeared to be effective against alien detection systems. Her reconnaissance missions provided the first close-range observations of the enemy force. Admiral the Kithrak. Fleet consists of organic vessels that appear to be living creatures rather than constructed ships, Colonel Yoon reported. The individual units show biological characteristics, but maintain formation discipline that suggests central coordination. The intelligence gathering revealed that humanity was facing a threat unlike anything in their historical experience. The Kithrak swarm combined biological reproduction with spacefaring capability and showed an intelligence that planned long-term campaigns across multiple star systems. They were essentially a plague that had evolved the ability to travel between worlds. Dr. Park continued working with Valerian linguists to improve communication between the two species. The harmonic language proved to be incredibly complex, with emotional and contextual information embedded in every transmission. The Valerians expressed concepts through frequency combinations that carried multiple layers of meaning simultaneously. The Valerians are trying to understand why we would risk our own lives to help a species we had never met, Dr. Park reported. The concept of military intervention on behalf of strangers appears to be foreign to their experience. Captain Kim prepared the Indomitable for combat operations while studying the tactical data about the Kithrak swarm. The enemy fleet was approaching the system and would arrive within standard days, according to Valerian calculations. The human fleet would need to be ready for immediate combat against an opponent they had never faced before. All ships prepare for combat operations, Admiral Lee transmitted to the fleet. Based on the intelligence we've gathered, we're dealing with a biological threat that has overwhelmed multiple advanced civilizations. Our objective is to stop their advance and protect the surviving Valerian worlds. The Valerians watched in amazement as the human fleet deployed for battle. Their own defense ships were works of art designed for exploration and peaceful contact. The human vessels were clearly built for destruction, with every system optimized for maximum combat effectiveness. They move like predators preparing for a hunt, observed military advisor Harvek. The Kithrak swarm emerged from hyperspace like a living nightmare made manifest. Thousands of organic vessels pulsed with bioluminescent patterns as they advanced toward the inner system. Each ship appeared to be a creature bred for war, with defensive carapaces and weapon appendages that defied conventional understanding of military engineering. Admiral Woo Jin Lee watched the enemy formation on his tactical display and felt a familiar calm settle over him. Human military doctrine had been refined through centuries of warfare against increasingly sophisticated opponents. The principles remained the same, regardless of whether the enemy was human or alien. All ships assume attack formation Delta 7, Admiral Lee commanded. Fighter squadrons launch and establish combat air patrol. All weapon systems are authorized for immediate engagement. Captain Dae-ho Kim felt the Indomitable shudder as its massive railgun turrets rotated toward their targets. The ship's fusion reactors increased power output to maximum levels, while point defense systems tracked hundreds of incoming threats. The dreadnought carried enough firepower to devastate a small moon, but the enemy fleet outnumbered them 10-1. Target acquisition complete, reported Lieutenant Nam Il-choi. All weapon systems are locked onto priority targets. Shall I commence firing? The first salvos erupted across space as human kinetic weapons hurled projectiles at a significant fraction of light speed toward the advancing Kithrak vessels. The impacts generated electromagnetic pulses that disrupted sensors throughout the system, while nuclear warheads detonated in brilliant flashes of destruction. Major Su Jin Hong led her fighter squadron in the first direct engagement with individual Kithrak units. Her pilots discovered that the enemy ships were indeed living creatures with biological responses to damage. Wounded vessels secreted defensive compounds while others rushed to protect their injured companions. "These things are definitely alive," Major Hong reported while executing an attack run against a creature the size of a battleship. "They're bleeding some kind of acidic fluid, and the smaller ones appear to be trying to tend to the wounded," Kithrak's response was swift and terrifying. The larger creatures opened appendages that had been concealed within their carapaces and began firing streams of corrosive material toward the human fleet. Other vessels released clouds of smaller organisms that swarmed toward the human ships like guided missiles with teeth. Chief Petty Officer Dong Hyun Lim coordinated the point defense systems aboard the Indomitable as waves of biological attackers approached the hull. Automated weapon systems fired continuously, while crews manually targeted threats that penetrated the defensive screen. The ship's armor began showing signs of corrosion where enemy acids had made contact. "Hull breach on Deck 7, reported the damage control officer. "The enemy acid is eating through our armor plating faster than our repair systems can compensate." General Hyunwoo Kang launched the first boarding operations as human assault shuttles approached damaged Kithrak vessels. His Marines discovered that the enemy ships were essentially mobile ecosystems with internal atmospheres that could support human life. The interiors resembled biological cavities more than traditional spacecraft compartments. "These ships don't have crews in any sense we understand," General Kang reported, while his Marines explored the interior of a captured Kithrak vessel. "The entire structure appears to be a single organism with specialized appendages for different functions." The boarding teams made a disturbing discovery when they reached what appeared to be the control center of the enemy ship. Instead of a bridge or command deck, they found a neural cluster that pulsed with electrical activity. The creature they were inside was not just alive, but intelligent in ways that human science was only beginning to understand. Colonel Yoon-ji Yoon led her Special Forces teams in precision strikes against key Kithrak vessels. Her mission was to capture intact specimens for scientific analysis while eliminating command structures that coordinated enemy movements. The stealth technology that made her teams invisible proved effective against biological sensors. "The enemy appears to communicate through electromagnetic pulses generated by specialized organs," Colonel Yoon reported. "Disrupting these signals causes temporary confusion in nearby vessels." Dr. Minho Seo analyzed biological samples recovered from damaged Kithrak vessels and made discoveries that revolutionized human understanding of the threat they faced. The enemy was not a single species, but rather a collective organism that had evolved the ability to traverse space. Each vessel was essentially a specialized organ in a galaxy-spanning creature. "The Kithrak swarm is actually a single biological entity," Dr. Seo reported to Admiral Lee. "The individual ships are analogous to white blood cells or antibodies in a massive organism that treats entire star systems as potential food sources." The revelation changed human tactical approaches as commanders realized they were fighting a creature rather than a fleet. Traditional military strategies needed to be adapted for combat against an opponent that viewed the destruction of individual units as acceptable losses in pursuit of larger objectives. Commander Gildong Park coordinated carrier operations as human fighters engaged Kithrak defenders throughout the system. His pilots reported that enemy tactics showed adaptation and learning as the battle progressed. The creatures were analyzing human combat methods and developing countermeasures in real time. "The enemy is evolving its tactics faster than our combat computers can track," Commander Park reported. "They're using wounded vessels as bait to draw our fighters into ambush positions." Admiral Lee made the decision that would define the character of human warfare for generations to come. Instead of attempting to disable or capture enemy vessels, the human fleet would focus on complete extermination. The Kithrak had demonstrated that they viewed entire civilizations as food and showed no interest in coexistence. "All ships are authorized to use maximum force," Admiral Lee commanded. "Our objective is the complete elimination of this threat. Show no mercy, because they will show none in return." The human fleet unleashed the full fury of weapons designed to destroy rather than disable. Nuclear warheads with enhanced radiation output sterilized entire sections of space, while kinetic projectiles traveling at relativistic speeds punched through enemy carapaces like bullets through tissue paper. Biological warfare agents designed for use against human opponents proved surprisingly effective against Kithrak physiology. Captain Jinsu Bei coordinated hunter-killer operations using fast attack vessels to track down Kithrak scouts attempting to escape the system. His mission was to ensure that no enemy vessels survived to report human capabilities to other parts of the swarm. The stealth frigate Silent Arrow led pursuit missions that ended with the complete destruction of fleeing enemies. "No Kithrak vessel will leave this system alive," Captain Bay reported while coordinating the final phases of the pursuit operation. "We're tracking down every scout and probe to ensure they cannot warn the rest of their swarm about our presence." The Mao. Valerians watched the battle from their crystalline towers with a mixture of awe and horror. They had never witnessed warfare conducted with such systematic efficiency and ruthless determination. The human fleet was not just defeating the Kithrak swarm, but exterminating them with a thoroughness that suggested centuries of experience in total warfare. "They fight like the legends of the ancient destroyers," whispered Counselor Veltara while observing the human combat operations. "They show no hesitation and accept no surrender." The battle raged for 18 hours as human forces systematically eliminated every Kithrak vessel in the system. When resistance finally ended, the space around Valeria Prime was filled with the debris of thousands of biological ships and the electromagnetic silence that indicated the complete destruction of the enemy force. "All enemy contacts eliminated," reported Lieutenant Choi. "Long-range sensors show no surviving Kithrak vessels in the system." Admiral Lee surveyed the aftermath of humanity's first interstellar war and began planning the next phase of operations. The intelligence gathered during the battle had revealed the location of Kithrak breeding systems, and the human fleet would hunt down every trace of the species that had threatened galactic civilization. "Prepare for deep space operations, Admiral," Lee commanded. "We're going to track this plague to its source and eliminate it permanently." The Valerians realized they had witnessed something unprecedented in galactic history. A species had appeared from an unknown region of space and destroyed a threat that had consumed 17 civilizations. The implications of human military capability would reshape the balance of power throughout the galaxy. 3 months after the destruction of the Kithrak swarm in Valerian space, Admiral Wu Jin Lee stood on the bridge of the UES Peacekeeper, watching as the last enemy breeding world burned beneath atomic fire. The human fleet had tracked the biological plague across 17 star systems and eliminated every trace of the species that had threatened galactic civilization. Dr. Minho Seo completed his final analysis of Kithrak biology while observing the sterilization of their homeworld. The virus he had developed specifically targeted the genetic markers that allowed the creatures to maintain their collective consciousness. Without the ability to coordinate their actions, the remaining Kithrak had collapsed into primitive organisms that posed no threat to spacefaring civilizations. "The viral agent has been 100% effective," Dr. Seo reported to Admiral Lee. "All Kithrak organisms show complete genetic breakdown within 48 hours of exposure. The species is now extinct." The systematic extermination campaign had revealed the true scope of human military capability when properly motivated. The fleet had not simply defeated the Kithrak, but eliminated them so thoroughly that no trace of their existence remained except in the records of their victims. The efficiency of the operation impressed even veteran human commanders who had witnessed the horrors of interstellar warfare. Captain Dae-ho Kim supervised the final phases of the cleanup operation while preparing his ship for the return journey to Valerian space. The Indomitable had distinguished itself during the campaign by destroying more enemy vessels than any other ship in the fleet. The crew had adapted quickly to fighting biological opponents and developed tactics that would become standard doctrine for xenological warfare. "All sectors report complete elimination of hostile life forms," Captain Kim announced to his crew. "The Kithrak threat has been permanently neutralized." The news of humanity's victory spread across the galaxy through trade routes and communication networks that had been silent for generations. Species that had retreated into hiding emerged. To learn about the warriors who had eliminated the greatest threat in galactic history, the systematic nature of the human campaign convinced even the most cautious civilizations that Earth's children were protectors rather than conquerors. Ambassador Ja-young Kim arrived at Valeria Prime aboard the diplomatic vessel Harmony to begin negotiations for humanity's integration into galactic civilization. The crystalline beings who had sent the desperate signal now found themselves in the unprecedented position of welcoming their saviors into a community that had never known such efficient warriors. The Galactic Confederation wishes to offer humanity full membership with voting rights on all matters of mutual concern, announced Counselor Veltara during the first formal diplomatic session. Your species has demonstrated capabilities that we believe are essential for the defense of civilized space. The offer of membership came with conditions that surprised human negotiators. Instead of the junior partnership they had expected, the galactic community unanimously voted to make humanity the military arm of their confederation. Species that had survived for millennia through careful neutrality now sought the protection of apex predators who understood the value of defensive warfare. We have learned that in a universe filled with dangers, it is better to have the most efficient killers as friends than to face them as enemies, explained Counselor Mordain during a private conversation with Ambassador Kim. Your species has shown that you will fight to protect others even when you gain nothing from the conflict. Dr. Somin Park established the first permanent translation protocols between human languages and the harmonic communication systems used by most galactic species. Her work became the foundation for diplomatic relationships that would reshape the balance of power throughout known space. The cultural exchange revealed that humanity's violent evolution was unique among spacefaring civilizations. Most species developed intelligence as a response to environmental challenges or social cooperation, Dr. Park explained in her report to Earth's government. Humanity appears to be the only species that evolved intelligence primarily as a weapon for survival against other predators. General Hyun-Woo Kong established the first joint training programs between human military forces and alien security personnel. The exercises demonstrated that most galactic species had never developed effective combat techniques because their evolution had not required them to fight for survival. Human tactical doctrine became the standard for defensive operations throughout the Confederation. The alien forces show excellent technical knowledge but lack the aggressive instincts necessary for effective warfare, General Kang reported. Our training programs focus on developing the psychological conditioning required for combat against hostile species. President Yonsu Cho addressed the Galactic Confederation Council during the formal ceremony marking humanity's membership. The speech was broadcast across hundreds of worlds and translated into communication methods ranging from harmonic frequencies to electromagnetic pulses. Earth's leader promised that human military forces would defend any member species against external threats. We accept the responsibility you have offered us, President Cho declared. Humanity will stand guard so that peaceful civilizations can continue to develop without fear of extinction. The establishment of permanent human bases throughout galactic space began immediately after the diplomatic agreements were finalized. Earth's military constructed defensive installations at key strategic points while maintaining mobile fleets capable of responding to threats anywhere in known space. The defensive network became the foundation for an era of unprecedented peace and prosperity. Captain Seong-ho Yu commanded the first joint human Valerian patrol fleet during operations in the outer systems where new threats might emerge. The cooperation between warriors and peaceful beings created a defensive capability that neither species could have achieved alone. Human tactical knowledge combined with Valerian technology produced ships and weapons that exceeded the capabilities of either civilization. The joint operations have been successful beyond our most optimistic projections, Captain Yu reported. The combination of human combat experience and alien scientific knowledge has created defensive systems that can respond to any conceivable threat. Colonel Yoon Ji-yoon established the Galactic Intelligence Service using human special operations techniques combined with alien sensor technology. Her organization became responsible for identifying potential threats before they could develop into existential dangers. The early warning system prevented several conflicts that might have escalated into galaxy-wide wars. Our intelligence network now covers 90% of known space, Colonel Yoon reported. We can detect hostile activities long before they pose a serious threat to member civilizations. The transformation of galactic civilization accelerated as peaceful species gained access to human defensive technology, while humans learned scientific techniques that had been developed over millions of years of careful research. The exchange of knowledge created advances in medicine, engineering, and physics that benefited every member of the Confederation. Commander Gildong Park supervised the construction of the first generation of hybrid warships that combined human weapons systems with alien defensive technologies. The vessels represented a new approach to space warfare that emphasized protection of civilian populations rather than conquest of territory. The hybrid fleet became the symbol of humanity's role as galactic protectors. The new ships are capable of engaging multiple threats simultaneously while maintaining defensive screens around civilian vessels, Commander Park reported. We can now protect entire star systems without risking non-combatant casualties. The EIR memorial services for the 17 worlds consumed by the Kithrak swarm became annual events that reminded all galactic species of the price of complacency in the face of existential threats. Human representatives participated in the ceremonies while maintaining the defensive vigilance that prevented similar tragedies from occurring again. Counselor Veltara delivered the closing address at the 5th anniversary memorial service while standing beside Admiral Lee in a gesture that symbolized the alliance between warriors and peaceful beings. The harmonic frequencies of her speech carried across subspace to every world in the Confederation. We remember the worlds that were lost, but we celebrate the fact that no world has fallen since the day Earth's children answered our call for help, she sang. The galaxy sleeps peacefully because humanity stands guard. Admiral Lee reflected on the changes that had transformed both human civilization and galactic society during the 5 years since first contact. Earth had sent its children to the stars expecting to find new worlds to conquer, but instead discovered a galaxy that desperately needed someone willing to stand guard while it pursued the peaceful development of knowledge and culture. We came, looking for adventure and found a calling, Admiral Lee noted in his personal log. Humanity has become the sword and shield of galactic civilization, not through conquest, but through the willingness to sacrifice everything to protect others. The final entry in the historical record of humanity's first interstellar war was written by Dr. Park during the dedication ceremony for the Galactic Defense Academy on Luna.